Naruto is a series full of dynamic and complex characters. Some characters, Itachi, Pain, and Madara, are understood to raise valid philosophical points, while others, Naruto, Obito, and Sasuke, are believed to be cliche, annoying, and lacking the same depth and uniqueness that the former characters have supposedly. However, I am here to argue for the latter characters first. I will analyze the others later. Many of the characters I am analyzing are based on Eastern religious and cultural themes that Western audiences are not aware of, so I am simply adding on to an understanding of the plot through metatextual evidence in order to explain why I believe this character to be well written. I am aware of Kraftsdorf, Hot Boy Spicy, Swag Kage, Seth the Programmer, and MathWiz's analysis of Naruto and its plot, but I would like to delve deeper into Naruto's thematic and philosophical points. The character I will analyze first in my series of Naruto and Bleach analyses is Obito Uchiha, who is to me the most misunderstood but most complex character in Naruto. One who raises a philosophical point and has also suffered more than just about anyone in Naruto's world of perpetual suffering. To begin, let's delve into his backstory.
Obito Uchiha! Cause I'm gonna wear the Uchiha crest and become Hokage.
The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility.
The ninja world is built on a harsh pretext, this being that shinobi are tools, mercenaries used as a means to an end for war. This war is meant to bring prosperity to the shinobi's nation, but all this does is create scarred and jaded human beings who are suffering. This brutal dogma is at the crux of Obito's philosophy and its backstory, where Obito carries a culmination of the ninja world and all of its flaws that Naruto had previously overcome in his previous foes inside of him. The pain of genetic curses, the pain of loneliness, the pain of hatred, and eventually, the pain of hopelessness. Both Naruto and Obito, afflicted by the shinobi world and its flaws, were the culminations of them, tested the other to see who would break first in their ideals and acknowledge the other's point of view. To put it simply, this fight was hope and endurance versus despair and escapism. Obito Uchiha, the dunce of the Uchiha, was born an orphan in the village hidden in the leaves. The Uchiha, marginalized by the leaves, sought strength and discarded any who could not give them strength. This is shown by Sasuke never getting any attention from his parents as a child, while Itachi, a child prodigy, was expected to carry the weight of the Uchiha in their survival as an agent against his own village by his own clan, despite being a mere child. This example is not meant to divert from telling the story of Obito, but is meant to explain how the Uchiha and the world operated entirely. A useless child, a useless dunce, who was the worst in his clan and the worst in his class, was not worthy of being recognized. The lack of recognition was perpetuated even more by him being an Uchiha. The village rejects all Uchiha, Madara, Sasuke, and Itachi, so once again, Obito, who was starved for recognition, could never receive it. The world was seemingly against him from all sides. The one who rejected this and recognized him unconditionally was Rin. Rin watched over him, recognized him, and made him believe hope existed. He eventually made it onto Team Minato and met his rival Kakashi, whose suffering was also a product of the ninja world. Kakashi's father was a ninja who rejected the world's brutal dogma of ninjas being tools and chose to act on his humanity. However, this brought him great shame, to which he committed suicide over. This event shaped young Kakashi's viewpoint on the world. He would conform to the system no matter what. Thus existed the two's rivalry. One rejected the ninja world's ways and believed that the shinobi that abandoned their friends are worse than scum. Thus, Obito chose to act to save what was special to him during the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, ignoring the mission. Here, Obito awakens the Sharingan, awakened by his self-hatred and his resolve to show Kakashi that his path was the right path. Thus, Obito and Kakashi united, finally understanding their differences. This happened too late, however, as Kakashi's mistake eventually led to Obito getting crushed by a rock. In his dying words, he passed his eyes over to Kakashi so that he could watch over him, and asked Kakashi to protect Rin. In his death, he was not even recognized by his own clan, who looked at him like a tool. Wondering why he would give such precious Sharingan to a non-Uchiha such as Kakashi. He was not recognized as a human, but a shinobi tool. Obito is saved by Madara Zetsu. Now, instead of Rin's kind words of encouragement, Madara is convincing him that the bonds he had formed in all of his suffering was because humanity was cursed to perpetuate conflict. These words, however, are a mere afterthought because Obito's light Rin was still alive. Obito chases after Rin and Kakashi. Despite all of what he went through as a preteen up to this point, he still vowed to reclaim his light and protect Rin. He trains and becomes significantly stronger under Madara's tutelage, but all of this to be met with despair and suffering. His best friend has slain his light. Suddenly, Madara's words make sense. Abandon the world that rejected you. Abandon the friends and sensei who had failed you. Abandon the world that allows you and so many others to suffer so much. But most importantly, abandon who you are to become a ninja tool and save the masses. Cure the human paradox in a dream realm. Obito, at his core being a helpful, kind boy, vows to save the world from their own perpetual suffering. To reject this human realm of perpetual suffering, he becomes a perfect ninja, an emotionless tool for a means to an end, who would cure humanity of its ailment. Thus, he puts on the mask to distance himself from his own humanity. He could not be recognized by anyone now, and he refused to recognize his past idealistic self. He was no one. Obito's philosophy is based on several things which have appeared in notable scenes of his and his overall goals and motivations. Samsara in Buddhism is the cyclical nature of human suffering. This is symbolized by the paths of pain, who are named after the different stages of the samsara, and the Rinnegan powers. Every Rinnegan user attains the ability to metaphorically see the cyclical nature of human suffering, or said samsara wheel. The completion of samsara in Buddhism is symbolized by the moon. The moon symbolizes enlightenment and understanding, which can be used to ease and erase suffering. This is why Obito and Madara wish to complete the Eye of the Moon plan, to create true understanding and enlightenment among the human race. Obito's understanding of the cure for the human paradox is different from Madara's. Obito views the Eye of the Moon as a cure for the human paradox, but also an easier way for him to attain enlightenment that will ease his own suffering and a selfish escape from the harshness of reality. This is symbolized in Rin's death through the reference of Kyoka Suigetsu and the reflection of the moon on the water's surface. This East Asian idiom means mirror flower, water moon. This idiom was explained very well by Kraftsdorf, whose video I will also link in the description, but whose explanation I will also include in the video.
In this case, a series of art pieces centered around the moon. The moon itself is a symbol of truth, enlightenment, and thus understanding. Yet the first of these three images portrays the moon as a reflection, the monkey watching the reflection assuming it to be real. This image is meant to signify the gap between knowing and understanding. While the viewer can know that he is pointing to the moon, knowing that it is there is not the same as finding and seeing the moon for oneself. In the final image, the moon is represented as a circle, one with a clear beginning and end, looping in on itself. Understanding is not an end unto itself, but also a path to return to the cycle of understanding and continue to question things, now even more knowledgeable.
After his murderous rampage, Obito sees the reflection of the moon on the bloody water. The moon was right above him, but his rage made him doubt his potential to reach understanding. He saw red, and he abandoned the world entirely to pursue something that on the surface was beautiful and immoral, but at its crux was twisted and deluded, and couldn't be further from the truth.
You can as well. Look at me! There's nothing in my heart! I don't...
After Rin's death, all of the people in Obito's life had failed him or failed to recognize him in the past. Minato failed to save the shinobi world and recognized his own student as he was drowning in his despair. As Obito, the masked man, attacked the village, Minato questioned him. But because he failed to truly recognize Obito in his want to save the village, he claimed like the rest of the world, did not care who Obito was. Obito even removes his hood to display the hairstyle he had in Team Minato, but Minato failed to recognize his own student. This is something his own sensei, who failed in his own rights, had achieved when confronting Nagato behind the facade of pain. Kakashi, in his rigid dogma, failed to recognize Obito was the reason for Obito's first death, and failed to protect Rin, put Obito in this situation. Kakashi, a product of the stagnant shinobi world, seeks to kill Obito to help Naruto. Their fight ends in stagnancy and despair because both of them had rotted from the inside from this stagnant, cursed shinobi world. However, both Kakashi and Minato's failure wasn't a means to an end because hope was found in Naruto, the boy Kakashi had originally thought was a good-for-nothing loser, reminding him of the young Obito, who once rejected the shinobi world's ideal of ninjas being tools. Minato entrusted his mistake to be fixed by his son Naruto. Instead of looking right through Obito, Naruto claims that he's going to make Obito rip his mask off and atone for his sins, rectifying his father's failures because his father entrusted him to save the world like he failed to. This is why ultimately, Obito throughout his fight with Naruto continually tested Naruto and others to see if he can talk no jutsu them, quote-unquote, into despair and escapism with him. Yet, each time one of Naruto's comrades reminds Naruto of what they're fighting for. They're holding the same parts of the shinobi world that Obito and many of his foes had. Naruto gained allies, turning his pain into strength and eventually, hope. His foes defeated, not leaving them as broken ninja tools to decommission, but reformed, reconciled human beings, those who had confronted and overcame their past with their defeat as Naruto sought to overcome his past. Obito, alone, isn't validated by anyone, so he doubts himself. Obito at his core hadn't reconciled with his previous self. He sought to conform to the idea that shinobi were tools, using himself and others as tools in the Eye of the Moon plan. However, deep down inside, he still longed to become Hokage and reclaim his humanity through the dream world. He still longed to be understood and human. Obito had not truly given up hope, but as hope took literal form through his previous self, Naruto, he sought to reject it because acknowledging this would make his entire life a failure. As Obito argued with Naruto, he was confronted by his previous self that he sought to bury. He had never truly abandoned the very human desires and experiences that he claimed meant nothing to him. He tried to change his identity, becoming the Masked Man, Madara Uchiha, and even calling himself the second coming of God, the Sage of the Six Paths. But it was his very human experiences that drove his despair and created a hole in his heart. Obito wanted to create a world where no one would have to suffer, but failed to realize that human beings could endure and overcome suffering together and be linked through empathy. Naruto chose to acknowledge those who influenced his growth, whether it's through hatred or love, and all the hatred formed into love and bonds. This was the truth he wanted Obito to confront. As Obito lies, defeated on the battlefield, he realizes how he got to this place. Even with his powerful eyes, the moon he reached for was nothing but a beautiful lie. And with his defeat, he reconciles with his past identity and is forced to recognize hope and his humanity once again. He could finally see the moon.
But I just ask that you let me walk in front of you and die for you.
Obito finally sees the truth via the moon. He understands he has lost his path and became who his younger self deemed worse than scum by abandoning his comrades and himself. This leads Obito to want to atone for his sins, which he does. The Hokage is the one who walks ahead of others, but as Itachi said after realizing the mistake he made with his own little brother Sasuke, only those recognized can become Hokage. The Hokage is the one who walks ahead of others, so in his final moments, Obito got to reclaim what little he could of his past dream and his past self, while atoning for his sins. Obito in the final fight with Kaguya is given a chance to atone for what little he could. He walks in front of Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto, protecting the young leaves who carry the will of fire before dying to Kaguya, standing as a metaphorical Hokage, the one who walks ahead of others. as one whose fire had burned up, passing that flame to the young leaves he protected. Finally reclaiming the path he had previously abandoned, Obito reconciled, atoned, and reclaimed what little he could of his old path and old self. Okay, so this part isn't scripted. Sorry, I stutter a lot. Maybe you might have noticed that when I was reading off my script. But just want to tie up any loose ends and thank you guys for watching this. And thank everybody who motivated me to make this video, including the YouTubers like Hotboy Spicy, Craftsdorf, MathWiz, Set the Programmer, Swag Kage, etc., etc. And just wanted to tie up any loose ends. I would just want to say, like, side note, Obito lost faith in reality and believed escapism was the only way to cure the human paradox, because not everyone was so lucky to have great people who were watching over them so that they could endure and overcome their own pain as well. And Obito didn't really have anybody who could be there for him, the same way Naruto had Jiraiya, Minato, Kushina, Kakashi, and Shikamaru to help him through his lowest. And some of those adults had helped Naruto learn from their failures with Obito and entrusted Naruto to rectify their own failures. And Obito is who Naruto would have become if he didn't have those people. But that's basically it. Subscribe. I have more coming. I actually do not think I will analyze Naruto and Sasuke because that has already been done pretty well by Hotboy Spicy, MathWiz, and Craftsdorf, so I'll leave that to them. And I might just make a playlist full of a bunch of videos analyzing Naruto characters. But yeah, I don't really have anything left to say. Let me know what you guys think. This is my first video. My mic quality is probably still pretty bad, but just let me know what I can improve on and stuff like that. But thank you. Please subscribe.